Welcome to the Gottesdienst crowd, where we foster confessional integrity, liturgical preservation, and preaching that doesn't stink. We believe that the historic liturgy of the divine service is more than mere cobwebs of antiquity, but it is a true treasure of the Church, to be dusted off and brought down from her attic to be enjoyed. So let's get dusting.
Welcome back to the Gottesdienst crowd. This is Jason Broughton. Today we have back with us Dave Peterson. Welcome back, Dave.
Thank you.
We are picking up with the Gospel reading for Palmarum, the Sunday of the Passion, which is all of Matthew's Passion, chapters 26 and 27. We're only going to read chapter 27, verses 32 to 53, and then hopefully discuss some possible themes throughout the entire Passion narrative, and even its relationship to Psalm 22. So here is Matthew 27, verses 32 to 53. Now as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross. And when they had come to a place called Golgotha, that is to say, place of a skull, they gave him sour wine mingled with gall to drink. But when he tasted it, he would not drink. Then they crucified him and divided his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet. They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Sitting down, they kept watch over him there, and they put up over his head the accusation written against him, "This is the King of the Jews." Then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and another on the left. And those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." Likewise, the chief priests also, mocking with the scribes and elders, said, "He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he is the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusted in God, let him deliver him now, if he will have him, for he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" Even the robbers who were crucified with him reviled him with the same thing. Now from the 6th hour until the 9th hour there was darkness over all the land. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani?" That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Some of those who stood there, when they heard that, said, "This man is calling for Elijah." Immediately one of them ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed, and offered it to him to drink. The rest said, "Let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come to save him." And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. Then behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth quaked, and the rocks were split, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. Okay.
So there you go.
Yeah, so there you go. That's the crucifixion narrative. Maybe just briefly, what's the history of reading the Passion of Matthew on Sunday, and then what we get Monday and Tuesday of Mark and Luke, and then Friday John? What's the reasoning behind that, other than obviously to get through all the Passion narratives from the 4 Gospels during Holy Week?
Well, I mean, that's. I think it's Tuesday and Wednesday.
Is it Tuesday and Wednesday? Okay.
I always get confused about when
do I.
when the other 2 are. But the whatever days it is, the point is just this is the central event in the history of the universe, and all of the details are so significant that they just have to be rehearsed, and we need to hear them. And I think there is. Yeah, it's ancient, this way of doing it. You know, the TLH thing where the Palm Gospel from Matthew 21 replaces this is a modern invention. So a lot of people really miss that because it was a shorter service. But I mean, I think there's just, I don't know what all the history is, but I think the idea is that we are actually meant to endure this in some way. And I don't mean that we're to appease God by our, difficulties or our sufferings or whip ourselves into an emotional frenzy. But there is a certain sense in which I think that the church does say, yep, this is long. And in some ways it is kind of tedious, especially on a Sunday like Palm Sunday when you've had all this other stuff. However, it deserves some attention. And it deserves us to sit and be quiet and listen, or to read along with, right? And again, the kind of the central reality and the holiest moment in all of time, and the way that God loves the world. So you can sit there for an extra 5 minutes to listen to the whole thing.
I mean, do you think that they changed it because Palm Sunday was, at least in America, the Confirmation Sunday for
maybe
Lutherans, and so they shortened it that way?
I don't know. Or they just, because it was called Palmarum, and so felt like that ought to take emphasis. And because we'd lost we had lost when we came to America, the actual palm ceremony, the blessing of the palms. So then there was, right? So we'd lost that ceremony, and then it's called Palm Sunday, and there's nothing, right, to do with Palm Sunday, so let's stick in the gospel. Even though we already had that gospel on Advent 1.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. But then I really hate I was confirmed on Palm Sunday. I really hate the tradition of confirming on Palm Sunday. I understand it. I think that the idea would be is that First Communion follows confirmation, which I also don't like. But if it does, then your First Communion would, because you're not going to have communion on Palm Sunday, First Communion would be on Maundy Thursday. Well, I get the idea of having First Communion on Maundy Thursday. I don't get the idea of not having communion on Palm Sunday, and I don't get the idea of having First Communion following confirmation. But on top of all that, to have confirmation on Palm Sunday is such a distraction from the actual liturgical event that I really think it's like borderline irreverent, like all of a sudden we're going to have a wedding on Palm Sunday. No, I'm happy to have a wedding on a Sunday morning, but not on Palm Sunday, right? Now, I don't have a Bible passage. I'm not saying it's a sin exactly, but I do think it's inappropriate, right? It's unseemly.
Yeah. So I think when I got here, just out of necessity, I think we had Easter was really early, like my first year. And so I was like, how am I going to get all this in? And so I moved it to Pentecost. And we've just kept it at Pentecost. And I kind of I like it there. It fits with the readings. It fits with kind of the what confirmation is, a confirming of what was given in baptism and through the word and the doctrine. And so I've just kept it on Pentecost. But that's why Pentecost is called Whit Sunday. Did you know that? No,
because of the white robes of the confirmands.
I did not know. I knew it was called Whit Sunday, but I didn't know why.
Yeah, that's actually pretty old tradition, and I think you're right. I mean, it's always going to probably be a distraction when you have confirmation,
right?
But maybe there's some days where it's more fitting and appropriate, and I think you're right about Pentecost. So good for you. You can start calling it Whit Sunday.
That's right. Oh, good. Okay, so you had mentioned that you kind of followed the outline of what Psalm 22, and that Matthew sort of follows, Matthew's Passion, I should say, follows that outline.
Well, at least this part, maybe that's not really said very well. These verses that you read are the only places in Matthew's gospel, in Matthew's Passion, where Psalm 22 comes up explicitly. It's really a psalm of the crucifixion. And we do have it as the tract, or verses 1, 6, 19, 22, and 31 are the tract for the day. So we will hear them or sing them just before the Passion is read. So that's the sort of connection. When I say it's the outline, it's not chronological because, of course, it starts with. But I do think that, well, just listen to this. Some of this isn't just Matthew, but and this is from Raymond Brown. So you've got, they divide my clothes among them and cast lots, which Matthew cites at the beginning of his crucifixion account. That's verse 18. Verse 7, all who seek me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads, right? Which we've got in Matthew. And then you've got in verse 8 of Psalm 22, he trusts in the Lord, let the Lord rescue him, right? The mockery here of the chief priests and the scribes is virtually a quotation, right? He trusts in God, let God rescue him now if he wants him, for he said, I'm the Son of God. Then verse 9 of Psalm 22, he committed his cause to the Lord, let him deliver him, let him rescue him, for he delights in him. So you got that. Then we've got, what's next here? The hours of darkness, right? At the end here might be a kind of fulfillment of some of this. And then, of course, finally, the last word, the only words of Jesus from the cross in Matthew's gospel, and the last word, my God, why have you forsaken me? Which is certainly, the most kind of, I don't know, is this the most significant thing, or it is finished the most significant thing? But you really got, I don't think anybody's going to say it's the other 5 sayings, not that we want to downplay any of them. But I think, sort of thinking about that or looking at that, and in fairness, I did more preparation for this podcast today in more specifically thinking about my own actual sermon planning, which I don't usually do. It's usually more generic. But this is such a huge thing that has to be narrowed down in some way. So that was kind of my attempt to narrow it down, if that makes sense. There's more here. Again, from Raymond Brown, he thinks about Psalm 22, and this is pretty straightforward, that there's kind of 2 parts. It starts as this individual lament, which is really the description of the crucifixion, and then it, waylays, as the Psalms of Lament typically do, into thanksgiving. And so, though it's not cited here, we do know the way that the psalm ends, and that, of course, then really kind of helps us have a theological understanding of the crucifixion. And I think this is the sort of really the kind of reason to use Psalm 22, not to so much to sort of explain how terrible it is that Jesus is dying on the cross, but to demonstrate the purpose, that he will be remembered, that he will come to the land of the living, and that the whole world will be told about it, right? And so you do have, this description, our kind of classic definition of hell is to be separated from God, and that is the words that David uses and that Jesus uses, that, right, I've been cut off, the Father has forsaken me. So it does demonstrate that this is where actually the atonement's taking place and the suffering is going on, as opposed to the descent into hell. That's often confusing to people. So you have a chance to talk about that. But anyway, I would put the emphasis on, and there's other details, right? The hands and the feet that are pierced. The fact that the one that Jesus is praying to, my God, is the one who receives the praises of Israel. And at the end of the psalm, because of the crucifixion of Jesus, is going to receive the praise of the whole earth. There's a whole bunch of other stuff here. We got the Psalm 1, verse 3. My God, I have shouted by night, and there is no rest for me. That might be something about the darkness. Again, Psalm verse 7, he's reviled by human beings, considered as nothing. Again, the mockery. Same thing with verse 8. And then verse 9, we already talked about. That's what they say. He hoped in the Lord. Verse 16, my tongue has stuck to my jaws. This might be part of that kind of thirsting thing, which isn't in Matthew. And then 17, a company of evildoers has encircled me. I don't know if that's a reference to the fact that he's crucified between 2 bandits, or if this actually talks about the people that are wagging their tongues again, and the soldiers. And then they have pierced my hands and my feet, right? This is probably, the most explicit prophecy in a way. And Brown brought up something, I think it was, who was it? Justin mocked the Jews for not recognizing the Messiah or not recognizing Jesus as the fulfillment, because no Jewish king ever had his feet and hands pierced.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 19, they divided up my clothes. Verse 25, and in my shouting to him, he heard me, might be a reference to get to not in the loud cry that tears the temple veil. And then finally, this kind of culminating thing, verse 28, all the families of the Gentiles shall worship before him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you really have the whole setting up. And then here's Brown, he says, in terms of the way that Christians read this, right? First of all, there's the concentration on specific details, the presence of the co-crucified wrongdoers, the pierced hands and feet, the division of clothing. So we have those details. Then secondly, we see the mocking hostility in this psalm that's shown to Jesus and his challenge that, God doesn't really favor him or love him and won't help him. And then finally, and that's the significant thing, to highlight the reversal, right? Mm-hmm. That he was abandoned on the cross, and yet he is raised by the glory of the Father, Romans 6, right? Mm-hmm. And so the same Father that abandons him vindicates him, raises him, and sends him out into the world to save the Gentiles. So I think there's a certain sense in which Psalm 22, well, there's a lot of things you could preach about there, but I think just in general to show the purpose of the crucifixion and the way that this was foretold and the way that faith reads the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you could construct a sermon all on that last sentence of 31. The Lord has done this.
The 31 of the Psalm.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, just want to make sure. Yeah. They will come and declare his righteousness to a people who we born. He has done this. Yeah, I like that. He has done this.
Because so often, right, we can get caught up in these people did that, these people did that. Like if you're asked, like who's responsible,
right?
There are all of those things are right answers, right? Yes. I'm not saying it's wrong to say, Pilate in his, lack of courage, or Peter who denies, or, the Jews from their envy, or any of that. That's all, the Bible lays that out, right?
Right.
Or the bloodthirstiness of the crowds, or our sin, but it's the Lord who has done this.
Yeah. And that's the reason that he's so far from helping him and from the words of his groaning, right? And it's so great, too, in that second, stanza of the psalm. But you are holy, enthroned in the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in you. They trusted and you delivered them. They cried to you and were delivered. They trusted in you and were not ashamed. But I am trusting in you, and I am ashamed. I'm crying to you and I am not delivered, right? That's the implication. Because then, but I am a worm and no man. I love that, too. So rich. Those who see me ridicule me, right? And then they say exactly what I'm saying. He trusted in the Lord. Why didn't they rescue him? When you trusted right? Well, and then you've got that great answer. The Lord has done this, right? And why? So that the Gentiles explicitly in verse I thought it was 28.
27 and 28, right? All the ends of the world shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations shall worship before you. For the kingdom is the Lord's, and he rules over the nations.
Yeah, that's just great. So you really have this connection between the crucifixion and the Great Commission, so-called, right? Because in Psalm 22, what is the purpose of the crucifixion? We all Lutherans know this, right? It's the salvation of the world. But you really get it in a profound way in the Psalm that you don't get it in Matthew chapter 27. I mean, not explicitly in Matthew 27, obviously. You're to read Matthew 27 knowing these things. But yeah, so that's, I think, something quite beautiful and profound there. We're going to get this psalm, by the way, again in of course, in Holy Week, it's going to come up several times, but we do get the entirety of it at Maundy Thursday, and then it's used in part on Good Friday, I think, as well. So this wouldn't be your only chance, but you have that, my God, why hast thou forsaken me, which is so profound. And I always, like to remind the people that this is really a liturgical expression and use, which is also kind of fascinating, that it's not that Jesus cites that first line just because it describes what it is to be in hell on the cross. Mm-hmm. That is part of what he's doing, to be sure, but it's meant to invoke the entirety of the psalm.
Yeah.
It's like the antiphon, and we're supposed to know what follows. Mm-hmm. It's meant to sort of think of that context. So,
is there anything to then the psalm that follows it?
It is so I always I can't think of his name now. This Australian guy in St. Louis at the St. Louis Seminary. He's married to Ed Veith's daughter. Great guy. I obviously don't know him well. I can't remember his name. I listened to him give a paper where he talked about the structure of the Psalms and made an argument that the actual order of the number of the Psalms is deliberate, and was, I thought, very convincing. Now I can't remember the whole argument, how he made it, but I had always been under this, what almost everything I've ever read is that, it's just kind of arbitrary. The numbers don't matter. They're all kind of independent sorts of things. There's a few exceptions, where you have the hollow Psalms and you have the Psalms of praise, but for the most part, he argues against that. And I can't remember the whole argument, but actually Psalm 22 and 23 is part of his argument. Yeah. Now it might've been part of his argument because it's the most obvious to us in terms of, we all know Psalm 22 and Psalm 23 so well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's exactly, he claims this for the whole Psalter. And I don't know if this is a linchpin of his argument exegetically, or if it's just a linchpin of familiarity that, makes it convincing. But I think you're right. And I think he would give you some scholarly backup because it is a kind of beautiful thing that, and I love then too that, for us, Psalm 23 is so associated with the, which Sunday in Easter is it? We call it Good Shepherd Sunday, but it's actually
Misericordias Domini.
Yeah, that's right. Misericordias Domini, right? This is, so you really have Good Friday on Psalm 22 and you have Easter on Psalm 23. Mm-hmm. And, you do have this rest that follows the...
Yeah. And the Latin is Dominus regit me. Like he rules, the Lord reigns.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what a promise to the Messiah himself, right? That's an interesting thing when you pull the Bonhoeffer thing and you say, how does Jesus pray this psalm? Because, of course, when we hear the Lord is my shepherd, we're right away Yahweh is my shepherd. We're thinking of the second person of the Holy Trinity, rightly so. Mm-hmm. However, right, our Lord can say this of his Father, and I love this too. I shall not want in the future tense. Yeah. Right. But there is this, the one that makes me be nailed to the cross is the one that makes me to lie down in green pastures and who leads me, restores my soul that he abandoned, right? Leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. I know it's really astounding. When you read it this way, it's moving. And then, I love this too, because if the Father is leading the Son in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake, that means the Father is leading him to walk on the same paths we are walking on. Mm-hmm. He's walking with us. Yeah. He's not just leading us. And then, talk about a description of the crucifixion. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. I'm not going to believe what those clowns are saying, even though it seems like it's true.
Yeah.
It's great.
So so does this instruct us on the kind of the kingly aspect of the crucifixion? This is how he's reigning.
Interesting.
This is how he's governing.
Yeah, I mean, that seems more Johannine to me, but I'm okay with
sure.
it. But yeah, I think, of course, there is this reality. In fact, doesn't it say
I mean, Palm Sunday, right? I mean, it begins with him coming in, right?
Yeah, that's right.
This is the king.
Well, also, is there some language no, that's not it. Why was it that Justin says to Trypho, no kings of Israel had their feet and hands nailed? There must be something in the Psalm that I'm not thinking of that makes us recognize this is a king. Is there? I mean, we know it's the King of the Jews. That's the title, but let's see, my praise it must be in the second half.
Well, I mean, other than the fact that it's a Psalm of David, so maybe
that's what it is. Yeah.
So he's probably arguing. I haven't read dialogue with Trypho in a long time, so it could be that he's saying this can't be of David.
Yeah,
he's speaking of another king.
That's got to be.
And since it's of David, David's going to be speaking of the king.
Yeah, there you go. That's probably it. Yeah, that makes sense. So from that point, you could certainly sort of say this. Yeah, and I mean, what a thing to say. No other king ever had his feet and his hands pierced, not even David, right? So how does David say that? I mean, he's not just talking about himself, and it's such an explicit, right? It's such a concrete detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love this too, right? This is great. In verse 10, I mean, it's just so much in here. I was cast upon you from birth, from my mother's womb. You have been my God. What a description of the incarnation, right? But you are he who took me out of the womb. You made me trust while on my mother's breast. I mean, there's just so much in here.
So then what are the themes? Like, where do you go with all this?
I know. Well, I mean,
and so that you don't
take all your, yeah,
because it would be easy to just completely, spend all of your chips here and then have nothing for Good Friday, or feel as though you did, like you don't. Do you ever try to think of what can I talk about here and then expound upon on Good Friday?
No, that's a really good idea, though. I wish I would think that way. Actually make sermons that are not independent of one another but work together.
Yeah.
I don't. I tend to, if that happens, it's accident. I tend to just think once or twice.
Would you say, like, I mean, maybe not say it outright, but we're going to take from the perspective of like humanity and then the perspective of God.
Yeah.
Like divide it up that way. Like what other dualities would there be? Well,
I mean, it seems like it worked pretty good to focus on my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And then on Good Friday to focus on it is finished. Kind of the kind of key statements in each of those passion accounts.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be one way of handling it. And, what is the kind of emphasis in a sense? And, yeah, I mean, right. Because, I mean, Psalm 22 is not uniquely in play in Matthew's gospel. It's in all four of them. So,
yeah.
So you might want to, you could certainly do that. You could, in terms of kind of how's this going to play out, yeah, you could focus on the lament side of the psalm. You still need to mention, obviously, the kind of completion, but then on Friday maybe get a little bit more into it. I mean, it is more clear in John's account, right, the kind of the serenity that the Christ has on the cross is different. I mean, it's portrayed in a much calmer way. Jesus lays down his own. You could really emphasize that the Lord has done it, right? because no one takes my life from me, right? All that stuff in John's gospel. I was Brown said something. Brown said something that I thought was interesting too, that could be worth talking about in terms of emphasizing the humanity side of it, or the kind of human historical things that went on here. He says everybody that was crucified had their hands and feet pierced, had their clothing divided, and was surrounded by criminals that were being crucified. So the details in here, in some sense, aren't that specific. I mean, they're specific to crucifixion, but they're not unique crucifixions. And so there's this sense in what the psalm is helping us recognize is the divine plan here, and again, the kind of purpose. So you could probably pull out that this is a crucifixion. Let's say, for example, when St. Peter is crucified, 30 years later, he goes through physically the same things, but he doesn't say, my God, why have you forsaken me? He doesn't say, I'm a worm and no man, right? There is this, the things that are just, I am poured out like water, all my bones are out of joint, my heart is like wax. Sure, all of this, but the difference would be is that Jesus is actually being forsaken by the Father, and no Christian is forsaken by the Father.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever done anything like comparing the two gardens on this Sunday? Gethsemane and Eden.
Gethsemane? No, I don't. What are the comparisons?
Well, I mean, it seems like there is temptation in both, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, you'd be like the old Adam, the new man, essentially,
right?
But from the perspective of the garden.
Yeah.
And then what is different, right? Jesus actually prays,
right?
Adam doesn't,
right. Well, and that so the big thing there that I love to talk about is that this indirect speech, that when Jesus says, right, take this cup from me, he doesn't actually mean, he's not asking that God take the cup. He's asking that the Father would pay attention to him and remind him and comfort him and go with him. It's like when the example I always use is when your mother said, you don't get out of bed when the alarm clock goes off and your mother comes by and says, are you going to lie there all day? Right? Mm-hmm. She's not asking for information. She's not actually asking a question. She's issuing a command. What she means literally is get up, right?
Yeah.
And it's very clear to us that that's what she means. And Jesus isn't actually asking to be out of anything. He's asking for the Father to comfort him. And then the Father sends the angels to minister to him. I think, I wonder if there's some of that going on here too, with my God, why have you forsaken me? It's not, he knows why, right? It's not like, I wonder what's happening.
Yeah.
He knows what's happening. I wonder if in that way you could maybe tie the Garden of Gethsemane to the crucifixion a little more tightly. And then again, right, the difference between Adam and Eve, who were not forsaken in the garden and yet fail. They don't pray.
So you're saying that he says this not as a prayer to God, but as a statement to those around him?
No, I think
it's so that they know what they've done.
Well, I think it's both. I think it's addressed to God. I just don't think it's actually it's not as though he's asking for information. I wonder why God's doing this.
Yeah.
So it's a rhetorical question, or it's a kind of indirect speech. And he's expressing simply the reality. He's not really asking for why. He knows why. Does that make sense? So, he's making the statement of what God is doing to him, and really, in that sense, it's meant to expose how outrageous it is. Are you going to lie there all day, right? That's a command, right? I think in a sense, my God, why have you forsaken me, is actually a command to make it end, right? Get this over with, finish it, do what you're supposed to do. Which, and I don't mean that as a cry of impatience on the part of the son, but there is, again, this. I love this Hebrew idea that the family has the right to speak freely at the dinner table with a kind of intimacy, and that's what the laments often are. I think, like a lot of Moses's remarks, like when he's like, "Well, I have uncircumcised lips," or I'm not a good speaker, or they're not going to believe me. They're not as outrageous as they sound, because he's actually just having a family discussion, and this is sort of like almost like a Socratic kind of method to get at what is the distilled wisdom and to make sure I understand what the Father wants. And I have the kind of privilege to speak frankly with him, and also the expectation to be heard. And, there's in human families, right, there's the definite possibility that the Father actually might respond with a modification of the plan because you have a point. And that's not, so the kind of banter is not disrespectful. It's actually an intimacy and a privilege. And that's the way that we should read a lot of these kinds of psalms of lament. And so here too, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's to remind himself of why God has forsaken him. It's also, kind of a charge again to the Father to hurry up, to get this done, and to do what needs to be done so that we can be done, right? And it can be finished. And then also, of course, that we get, kind of pulled into it and have to ask ourselves. Maybe that should be the theme, or the kind of sermon theme. That is, why? I mean, that's what he says. That's the first word out of his mouth in Matthew's on why. And maybe, what a great question. I mean, that's almost as good of the question as, who do you say that I am? Right? Why? Why does the Father forsake the Son? That's the question Jesus asks, and that's what we propose to answer today in the sermon. And to do it with the words of Psalm 22 and Matthew 27. That wouldn't be bad.
Yeah.
This rhetorical speech stuff is really interesting to me. And
well, what about the question that he poses in the garden? Could you not watch with me 1 hour?
yeah, that's right. That's right. And the answer is no, but we should have been able to. Yeah. Why are we so weak? I ask myself that a lot.
Do you think when he says the spirit is willing, the flesh is weak, that he is wrestling against his flesh?
That our Lord is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that.
I don't know if I want to say that. That sounds,
you watch and pray lest you enter into temptation.
Yeah.
I mean, he is obviously watching and praying.
Yeah. There is this, I just saw somebody, I thought this was good. I can't remember where I saw this. Somebody made a distinction between entering into temptation, in the kind of temptation that happens internally is sin, right? Because we cave into it, and that which happens externally, right? Jesus, he's tempted, that's real temptation, but he doesn't actually engage in it. And I wonder if that enter into is a way of expressing that. He does not enter into temptation, he is tempted. In that sense, he doesn't wrestle against his flesh in the same way. We don't know what it is to wrestle against the flesh because we just cave. We do somewhat, but because we have concupiscence, we don't know what it is to face a temptation and not be corrupted. Because, it's not, because we wouldn't even use the word temptation. Like when Jesus is asked to do something that is disobedient to his Father, he doesn't actually imagine it or consider it. It's just ridiculous to him. It doesn't matter if it's obvious to everyone else. You're hungry, make bread. He's like, no, why would I would never even, what a ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
And we can't really go there on this side of glory because the old man is still, he's not ruling over us, but he's trying. And Jesus doesn't have the struggle between the old man and the new man. I think typically when we use the language of struggle against the flesh, that's what we mean. And he has no old man.
Yeah.
So I don't, that's the problem I'm having with that statement. I'm trying to think of, I don't want to, there's battle that's being done. He resists sin. He suffers for sure. And there's struggle, but is it struggle against the flesh? I don't think so. I think it's struggle against Satan. Maybe struggle against his father.
So if Satan in the Garden of Eden is tempting them to contradict God's will in eating, what is Satan tempting Jesus here in the garden?
Oh, I think it's always got to be to give up the mission and go home. Let me have them. Right? The only thing really, I'm reading, I never read Paradise Lost, so I'm reading it for the first time. And it's been great. I can't believe how much fun it is. And the only thing there that like Satan really kind of comes out that he really wants to do is he just wants to hurt God by stealing Adam and Eve because he can't win. And it's that's what he wants. He wants to he knows he can't be redeemed. This isn't in the Bible, but I think it's a valid analysis, right? What he wants to do is he wants to harm God somehow. And the only way he can figure out to do it is to get at us, and he can hurt God that way. And I think that's the temptation, right? That's the temptation in that very explicitly, it seems to me, or very implicitly in the temptations in Matthew's gospel. Why should they eat while you're hungry? Quit trying to save these worthless people who grumble and complain in the desert. There's no reason for this. You don't need this. Go away. Let me have them. That would be just. That's the temptation. So come down. And of course you get it in, is it Luke's gospel, right? Come down from the cross.
Yeah.
And
save yourself.
Save yourself. Why? Why not? You don't have to do this. Nobody's making you do this. And there's no reason for this. I thought you were the God of justice, the God of the law. Why don't you said they're going to die. Let them die. Let me have them. That would be fair. Go start a new universe somewhere.
Have you ever done a sermon on just that, save yourself? The impossibility of saving yourself. From Jesus can't do it because it means, not following his Father's will. We can't do it because we're incapable.
No, that's great. That's really good. Yeah. No, I've usually, if I've ever talked about it, I think it's usually been that it's not that he can't do it, which is completely fair saying, but usually to say it's not his will to do it. He doesn't want to do it. What he wants is to, what justice is actually him getting back what belongs to him, not handing us over to Satan. Satan is a thief and a liar.
Yeah. Impossibility, I
agree. It's impossible.
I'm equivocating on the term impossibility for us and him.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair.
It's unimaginable.
Well, it's like he can't
on
sin.
both sides.
Yeah, he can't sin. And to save himself would be to disobey his Father, right? So he can't in that sense that, he is divine. So I don't think it's the wrong way to speak at all. I think it's an important way to speak. But his will and his desire are one.
Right.
So this is significantly different than it is for us.
That all of our temptations are to save yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
In different ways.
Yes.
You could really do quite a bit with that, couldn't you?
You could. Yeah. I quote this all the time, but Aristotle, every man seeks his own good. And that's it. When we sin, we're seeking a false good, a disordered good that we think is going to do something good, right? It's going to save us in some way. That's what Eve does.
Do you think a sermon like that would be better for Good Friday or for entering in on Holy Week?
Yeah, it could work. That's just the thing. It's all together at this point, to try to make a giant distinction is pretty difficult. It's one big reality.
No, I know, but so if you did the save yourself theme the impossibility from Jesus' perspective of doing that, and then from our perspective of saving ourselves. What would the follow-up on Good Friday be?
Yeah.
What would be the answer?
Yeah, I see. Well, I mean, that he's done it, but that's going to have to be in the sermon.
It's going to have to be in that first. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe the follow-up is he actually wants. Maybe you do make this distinction. He has to do it on Palm Sunday, and on Good Friday he wants to do it. He's actually compassionate, and it's not merely a matter of duty.
Yeah.
Not that there'd be anything wrong with that, but that it is also that he actually has real affection for us. It's not simply. So maybe the answer, maybe on Palm Sunday the emphasis is this is the Messiah, this is his duty, this is the obedience of the Son, and this is the justice that the devil can't win. And then on Good Friday, and he also actually wants us. Mm-hmm. He actually loves us. He actually delights in us. And it's not just that the devil can't have his stuff.
Yeah.
It's also that, we were in, he hears the cries of his children in Egypt, and he's moved to compassion. He hears our cries and is moved to compassion. The whole Exodus is.
Do you think that would, could you do it in terms of, I think we spoke last time a little bit about, Jesus doesn't do what David did, in the springtime of the year. Jesus actually goes out to battle, right?
Yeah.
Could you do it in terms of a real king wouldn't think about himself?
There you go. Yeah. 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 The real king is, so I was reading this essay by C.S. Lewis on Paradise Lost on Satan, and he brought up. I forgot what it was. What did you just say? The real king.
The real king doesn't think about himself. I think that's what I said.
Yeah, I lost it. He made a similar point that what Satan is trying to do is that. We are always thinking of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so it's easier for Milton to imagine Satan, what it's like to be Satan, than it is to imagine what it's like to be Jesus. And I thought this was a profound point. So some of the criticism against Paradise Lost seems like Satan's the hero. He's more colorful. He's more deeply. He's more realistic. And what Lewis says is, well, it's easy to write a bad guy because basically all you have to do is imagine what it would be like if you would actually let yourself go and do the things you want to do. And so we can all imagine what it's like to be Satan in some sense.
Yeah.
Whereas to imagine what it's to be a hero always comes off in fiction kind of shallow and pastiche because nobody's actually been through this. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was an interesting kind of thing. So when you say, right, a real king, right, we can imagine what it is to be David.
Yeah.
Because we know what it is to think of ourselves, but to actually be this selfless person who doesn't think of himself, love your neighbor with your whole heart. What is that like? How do you do that? I mean, it really, I've sometimes said, look, if you've got a retirement account, then you don't love your neighbor as yourself because there's people out there who don't, and you're not dividing it up. You're not taking, hey, I shouldn't have money in my retirement account when you don't in yours, right? I don't even know how to do this, right? Or if I love my neighbor as myself, and I was a used car salesman, what I would like, right, is to, know exactly what the customer is willing to pay and how much he can afford. But I don't want to tell the used car salesman that. And I don't actually really think I should. So it's such a strange, right? I mean, what Jesus is so different than us. It's just, it's actually impossible to imagine. I think we have to imagine it. I think we have to struggle with it. So maybe that'd be a good place to do it. Look at what he actually does. for a good man, a man might die, but for the wicked. And what about for a good man, a man might die, but not for the wicked? But what about sending your son to die for a good man? Probably not. How about your son to die for the wicked? I mean, these are just impossible to imagine scenarios in some sense, and yet this is the essence of divine love. So yeah, I think that what a real king would do, which, David is, well, and you've got this, I love this too in Luther, right, with the first, or the introduction to the Lord's Prayer, right, as our true Father, right, that we, who is our true Father? It's actually our Father in heaven. Our earthly father is fake. He's not fake, but he's a sub-father. He's a steward. We belong to God. And our earthly fathers are always flawed. And, sometimes we find that frustrating, but that's the kind of, but at the same time, we ought to find it glorious that God uses these flawed people to show us something of himself and to teach us also to love that which is good but imperfect, because that's what he does with us.
Okay. So what do you think you're going to do?
I don't know. I mean, I'm further, at least I'm going to try to, I think, narrowing it down to one scene in like you did there with just read the crucifixion scene from the Passion. At least something like that helps to kind of limit it. It does sort of feel to me like that particular narrowing feels more appropriate for Good Friday than for Palm Sunday. But I just wanted to try to bring out this kind of Matthew emphasis. I mean, Matthew is just so emphatic, that this is all fulfillment of the Old Testament. And so, I mean, there's just so many allusions and so much richness here that it almost reads that Matthew's Passion almost reads like a commentary on the Old Testament, like he's stringing together these sorts of things. And so I guess I want to bring something like that out, and I think I'm going to try to use Psalm 22 to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's it always strikes me, particularly the garden scene, that do you get as much of that in John? I mean,
I don't think you get it at all in John, do you? Well, you get the arrest because he falls back.
You get the arrest, but do you get any of the prayers?
I don't know. I think I'm gonna. I liked that why idea.
Oh, yeah.
I liked that too, but I don't know. The garden stuff feels to me. So it's funny. The crucifixion stuff I'm apparently willing and ready to do on Palm Sunday, but the garden stuff feels like it belongs to Maundy Thursday to me. No good reason, just because that's when it happened. I mean, so it doesn't. It's not a logical thing.
It feels to me like John focuses more on the trials.
Yeah, I think you're right. And probably because of that, because John was there, in the Peter stuff, right? You have the anointing in Matthew's gospel too, right before this. That's not insignificant. The betrayal. The Judas stuff there's some unique stuff. The potter's field, the 30 pieces of silver, that's unique to Matthew. I also love John's, I love the whole question about, is it I? The betrayal. I mean, there's just so much here. There is a lot of garden stuff, you're right.
Do you think that do you think that Jesus, when the question is, when he answers, is it I to John, do you think he says that aloud or just to John?
Well, that's not in this account. That's in,
no.
Is it? But yeah, I don't know. I guess I assumed he said it out loud. Why would he just, I don't know.
I don't know, because it would seem to me that then everyone would know it was Judas. If he said it out loud, the one who just...
I think they do know it's Judas.
Do you?
Yeah, because he leaves.
Okay.
But I don't know. They're in a fog. They don't, I mean, they're so confused, which, is probably the way we are most of the time.
Sure.
Also, I mean, they're just overwhelmed with their own personal circumstances and struggles and whatever. And they just don't have the capacity to have any compassion for Jesus himself, or to sort of think seriously about the things that he's saying and the promises that he's made. And it's, that's why they fall asleep, right?
Yeah.
And they're, it's shocking how bad they are in some ways, but God forbid that we should look down upon them for it. As they should be. I mean, what they do is wrong, but boy, we should have a lot of sympathy, recognizing our own constant failures that are so similar.
Yeah. I think I might want to try to do this impossibility of the save yourself.
There you go.
I don't know what I'll do on Good Friday then.
I know. It'll work itself out.
I know. I'll come up with something.
I mean, really, the truth is
that feeling you start working on these things and you're like, what am I going to say now next week?
Yeah.
When they're similar.
Right.
I think we've talked about that with Christmas and Easter. Like, I don't think I could say anything else next year.
Yeah. There's just always so much. Well, and our own faith is always growing and changing, and, other influences are coming on us, in a good way. That's the real joy. I mean, to me, this is the real joy of the ministry. It's actually dealing with thinking about these things, talking about these things. I just love it. I love being in these texts. And there's a certain pressure, that can come from it, and a kind of panic that can settle in. But boy, the work itself of doing this is just the best thing in the world.
Yeah,
so,
indeed. Oh, excellent. Any final thoughts here?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Dave, and we'll pick up next time.
All right. Bye, Jason.